Morning. Thank you for being here. I want to welcome you to Summit here in the 54th District. My name is Rochelle Culbreath. I'm running for the new seat that was created recently out of the census. It's Norristown, Plymouth, and Conshohocken. I'm here today to discuss my education platform as well as just have a roundtable discussion with two experts in this field. I'm here with State Representative Joe Ciresi as well as Mike Robinson from Temple University. We are going to start our roundtable and I'll offer the opportunity for questions in the end. Representative Ciresi?
Well, thank you, and it's a pleasure to be here with both of you. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak about educational issues in Pennsylvania. Full disclosure, my son is a graduate of Temple University, so a huge supporter of the university and the university system. So thank you for being here. You know, Rochelle, when we started to talk about education, education is so broad, and there is so many aspects of what we can do as state legislators, what we can do as community members. And one of the biggest ones that we've heard about over the last so many years is charter schools and charter reform. Now, I spent 12 years on the school board in Springport. I sat at the table for 12 years and every year asked, where is the accountability of the charter school? Where is the money going that we're sending to these schools? Where is it being used? And I never got an answer. And in the Springport area school district, there was a couple $1 million that came out of that school district every year. And while that school district is a higher performing school district financially, there's still tax burdens that have to be fulfilled. So when I became a state legislator, this was one of the reasons why I ran, was reform in public education and charters being one of them. And I represent the 5th most underfunded school district right now, which is the Pottstown area school district, which sees millions of dollars go to the charters. So you say to yourself, okay, I understand we need it. I am all for the parents having an opportunity. My son went to public school for 12 years, but if you choose to send your children to a cyber charter or a charter school, that's up to you, your discretion. But we need accountability at the same time. And what we see right now is that over the last 25 years, we've never reviewed the law to fix it for the changes that may have happened over those years. So through the governor's office, through the Senate, we came up with a Bill 272, which is Charter School Reform Act, that will reform the way we look at the charters, the way the charters are paid, the way that boards are created, the process to get into the schools. It is a very comprehensive law where, as of today, I read this last night, 422 districts out of 500 districts in the Commonwealth have signed a resolution that they want to see reform happen. We're over 80% of the Commonwealth that wants to see reform happen. Yet the bill is stuck, hasn't even run a committee yet. So what does reform mean? Reform means accountability. Reform means that every child is treated equally. Reform means that if you're a public school that a charter say they are, then you fall under the same exact laws and guidelines as a public school does. One of my big issues has been representation. We're sitting here in a beautiful technical school. I was the board president of the Western Senate. This isn't about me, but I'm trying to talk about representation. So when we talk about joint operating committees of our technical schools, there's representation from every school board that sits here. Well, why can't we have representation on the boards of the charter schools, where we give just as much money in some instances, or maybe even more, depending on which charter school it is? If you're a public school entity, you should be treated exactly like a public school entity. Why are the costs for special ed through the roof when we look at the charter schools? Why are the AYPs and the cybers failing, every one of them? We saw a couple of years ago, every cyber charter school did not have average yearly progress. And what happens when those kids come back to the public education system where we have to put more resources into re-educating them? How come they're allowed to schedule, put their own rates out there? So these are the issues that the bills that we have out there are starting to look at, is start to answer the questions. If you want to say you're a public school, then you should act like a public school. Why can't the chartering school district, that chartered the charter, a lot of charter words there, have 51% of the vote on the board? And what is the board comprised of? They're not elected officials, they're appointed. No family member should be allowed to serve. No member of the staff's family should be allowed to serve. This is what we're trying to look at when we begin to reform this. If this bill would go through as is, $400 million would come back to public education. In a school district like Norristown, a school district like Pottstown, $400 million. We're talking millions coming back for guidance counselors, for psychologists, for math teachers, for school nurses, for librarians, for teachers who can speak multi-languages when they need to. Technology, right, because in the pandemic, what we experienced in Pottstown was we had a fight to try and find computers for every one of our children. And I'm sure Norristown was exactly the same thing. It took weeks till our kids were up to par with other districts. They should not be treated that way. But then we look at the child's whole education. When they arrive out of that program, and now they come to you for graduation, how it flows, what opportunities they have set up, what happened for dual enrollment. So when we look at the charters, there's a lot of things that need to be fixed. Those children also need to have an opportunity to dual enrollment. Those children need to have an opportunity at the same things that our public school kids have. But having said that, on the other side, those schools need to be handled exactly like our public schools are. There wasn't one budget that I sat through that there wasn't a member of the community who sat there, and we had to put that budget out there for months to let the community review it and come question us. In my 12 years as a school board member, I never once saw a charter school budget come before us that we could review. But a technical school budget did, and the IU budget they had to come out and present to us. Never did they have to come out and present us their budget. Why? Again, if you want to be treated equally, and I'm not saying close them.
Right.
I'm not saying underfund them.
I agree, and I want to be clear about that. I'm not anti-charter school.
No.
I'm not saying that they don't have a place. I just think that if they want to speak as a public school, they have to actually be reformed, and they actually have to have a structure created that operates just like a public school. And that is what I want to make sure is clear.
And that's, I've been accused of, you want to get rid of the charter schools, and not at all.
Not at all.
I want them to fall under the same guidance
That's
as
right.
they do the public schools. So I happened to be in an office, and I won't say where I was. There was a school that chartered a charter school. And the individual who was the head of the district happened to be in their office. There was a pile of papers like this on his desk. And he said, this is what they gave me for the renewal of their school. Literally, it was a stack of papers like this. It wasn't a binder, it wasn't a presentation, it wasn't that we're coming out with a board and for recertification in 5 years. Nothing. It was a pile of papers that were in a pile, literally in a pile. He said, this is what they gave us to go through recertification again. That is not the way we handle it in the business.
Right.
If our business manager, if Temple's business manager came before the board and said, well, here's what I need.
Yeah.
Or business manager of one of the schools came before the board, you'd say, you're fired. This needs to be, we're talking millions of taxpayer dollars.
Millions.
Billions across the Commonwealth, but, for these districts. And a district like Norristown, Chris Dormer is a huge advocate of reform, a huge advocate of fair funding, bringing the right money to this district that you need. He's been in the forefront. He and Stephen Rodriguez go hand in hand at every one of these meetings we see. They're not anti-anything. They're there's no accountability. They're anti-no transparency. That's what they want to see, and they're responsible for every student, whether they go to their district or they go to the charter. At the end of the day, responsibility still comes back to the school district, because when that child fails in a program, it's the school district's responsibility. So I applaud you for running for this seat, because this is far from a thankless job. I'll say that. People say, oh, it's a thankless job. But this fight, I look forward to having another colleague that stands next to me and the colleagues we have in Harrisburg to reform, to look at these issues on public education. We've got a lot of public education issues.
We do.
You see it, the product of what comes out.
And it's fundamental to making sure we have a well-prepped, well-trained workforce.
Exactly.
Because if we don't have our kids coming out of schools prepared for the college and the trade schools that are out there looking for them, if they're ill-prepared, you just have this vicious cycle that's going to be perpetuated.
Exactly.
Something needs to be done. I mean, I'm amazed at some of these stats you're sharing.
Yeah.
It's insane.
The 54th district we have 2 school districts that are represented in the 54th district. We have Norristown and we have the Colonial School District. Vastly different. So this conversation really helps me to address issues that in my platform, I want to create employable people. That is a huge component of why I'm going to Harrisburg. And I've sat on the Workforce Investment Board here in Montgomery County for more than a decade. And the education system in both Norristown and Plymouth are paramount to making sure we create employable people. And I've just watched how things have changed vastly since pandemic, not just with educating students or educating children, but also in the job force. The workforce has changed. Entrepreneurship has changed. So this conversation is important for us to continue on to understand what does education look like in the future for the 54th District. Michael, did you want to add more about your question?
Yes. One of the things I wanted to share today was the importance for parents and students that are in high school to start thinking about their future beyond high school. You know, think about college or trade school after you graduate. I'm a big supporter of trade school. I graduated from college. I have 2 college degrees, but I'm a big advocate for the trades. We're going to see a huge exodus in the next few years of people, you know, coming out of the trades, retiring. And there's going to be this huge void of talent because right now we don't have a robust educational system at the secondary level that's training our young people for the trades. We always hear, go to college, go to college, go to college, go to college. And I support that. But I think there needs to be an equally robust conversation steering our young people towards the trades. And so, you know, when I talk to audiences about the importance of college, when I say college, I'm also including in that conversation the trade school option. Because here in Pennsylvania, Forbes has a list of the top 10 trade schools in America, the 2-year programs that you can graduate with an associate's degree in the trades. And of the top 10 that made the Forbes list, 2 of those schools, I'm sorry, three of those schools are right here in Pennsylvania. One in Pittsburgh, one and 2, I believe, in Lancaster.
Yep.
Thaddeus Stevens Technical College is one of them. And so there needs to be a push there. And to Thaddeus Stevens Technical College credit, they have a stat that blows my mind. They place over 80% of their graduates in career positions. And I think their graduates earn on average $50,000 to $60,000 a year. That's, you know, above the average that a college graduate makes.
And they don't have the debt that they have coming out of college.
I'm in and out in 2 years.
Yep.
And I have a college degree in my trade.
Yep. And no school loans.
And no school loans. And that needs to be addressed because now students are coming out. I think colleges are becoming cost prohibitive. I applaud all of the colleges that have made adjustments during the pandemic to freeze their prices and not escalate the price each year as they normally have done to, you know, be in that cost containment pathway. But we're still dealing with the problem of affordability. I always tell students, you know, look at your community college. In Montgomery County, one of the best community colleges in the United States exists here, Montgomery County Community College. And it's one of the most technically advanced community colleges.
They have the most certificate programs.
We just had the 25th anniversary of Pottstown the other day of the college and talked about the programs they're expanding upon and how successful they are.
I sat on the President's Advisory Council for a few years at Montco.
Yeah, you know it.
Yeah, and so it does a phenomenal job. You're in and out in 2 years, less college debt, and you're trained. In most cases, you can even get certain certifications.
Right.
Which
they have
makes
collaborations with Drexel, with all of the major universities and colleges.
Those articulation agreements, right. So if you want to go on to the 4-year school, you did your first 2 years at community college, so you're prepped and prepared. And they have the remedial support services that a lot of the 4-year colleges are disbanding because the 4-year colleges are embracing this mindset. We shouldn't have these remedial services in place. They should already come prepared. But I can get that remedial support at the community college level. Spend my first 2 years there. Go to the 4-year college of my choice. After my first 2 years, spend only 2 years at the 4-year school. Walk away in 4 years, 2 college degrees, spending thousands less, and walking away with 2 degrees.
There's an interesting thing that's happening in public education where our students are finishing school really in their junior year of high school and maybe have to take 1 class. That senior year could be completely dual enrollment year. And we should be pushing that with our community colleges, especially with Montco. Then come off to Temple, you're coming in to be your second year at Temple or third year. I mean, I know what our debt is for my son's education at Temple. And I'm not complaining about it. I mean, it's high, but he got a great education in the Fox School of Business. Absolutely a great education. But if we would have known that his whole senior year, we could have had him take dual enrollment in every class, that would have been the way to go. And that's really the preparation for what you do, having these kids be prepared for that, and then coming handing them off to you in the university system and saying, hey, let's do this. And you're sitting here as a Temple employee pushing Montgomery County Community College.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm not saying you should come to Temple, but saying that these kids get their credits first and then come to us.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
And they'll be more prepared for that four-year college
Correct.
rigor that they're going to face.
What would that allow you to do as expansion of programming if those kids come in like that?
I think it would be huge. We already have articulations with MOPCO, with Delaware County Community College, with Community College of Philadelphia. So we have those articulation groups. But I think because of the robust array of pathways I can take at the community college level, along with the academic support, when I come to a four-year university, my mindset and my foundation is solid. And now I'm already thinking more critically about what pathways I want to take, as opposed to going to the four-year college and then trying to figure it out along the way.
Yeah.
I'm getting a more prepared student who's ready for the four-year
They
academic
have a
rigor.
decision in their mind of what they want to do and
Absolutely,
where they want to go with it.
which will build at the four-year university level more robust enrollment.
Right.
Because now you have people who are well-founded, well-grounded, well-educated in the pathways that they want to choose now.
Yeah.
And a higher graduation rate, I'm sure,
Yes.
than what we have. And when you look at the statistics that when the students start till the end and the drop-off rate over those 4 years, it's pretty high.
Yeah.
People don't realize how many people don't finish college
Right.
started. But you're right, if you're able to do this coming into that, you have a much better, robust graduation rate.
And retention is big.
Oh, it is.
Retention is big.
And that gets back to this conversation of K-12 on to where they go, you know, and
Right.
within the K-12 system and the opportunities that they're afforded within the K-12 system. How do we strengthen that to know that post-graduation of high school, you either go somewhere like here into a trade program, you go into a community college program, and then you go on to a four-year university where you can study on to your PhD. But how does every student know that, how does every student socioeconomically know they have that opportunity? I came from a poor family. I was the first out of 10 grandchildren to go to college. And the only reason I went is because I could sing. I got a vocal scholarship. Temple, I got a full ride to Temple, didn't go there, sorry. Wanted to get out of the cold, went south. But, you know, these students need to know that they have that opportunity. And I went to an outstanding high school. When I think about where kids go to school and the services that they don't have, how do they know that they can do that?
Right.
And that's one thing that we talk about here in Norristown, is that if we don't put the funding in to have the guidance, to have a career planning center, to have all these programs that some of the bigger schools have, these students don't know coming out of that, because like my family, my mother went to, 6 months before graduation quit. My father went to 10th grade, first generation American. That wasn't what was in their wheelhouse. They had to go to get a job.
Right.
It's up to us in the public school system to show these children the opportunities to be able to hand them off to you, prepared, and then you take them to the next step.
And we have to look at, when we examine census numbers, we have to look at where are these high pockets of first generation students?
Yeah.
Where are they living?
Right.
Because that's a big issue.
Yeah.
Because if I don't know about the support services,
Right.
if I don't know that I should be doing A through Z in
Yeah.
terms of my planning, then I'm going to be lost. I'm going to be a lost case.
Yeah.
You know, you figured it out somehow. You know, you have programs in different cities and counties like Upward Bound that do academic support and college and career guidance, that are these, programs that exist, standalone programs that exist that you can send your kid to. But again, if you don't know about these services
Right.
and these services aren't promoted, then you might be floundering around trying to figure it out. And that's losing time, valuable time.
And it's also that, culturally, some people don't want to ask for help or
Right.
understand it. And when they don't see it within the buildings they're at, when they don't understand it. I went to a school district that literally the other side of the tracks. millionaires and us. And we were all in the same building, and the services were all there, and the district was supported. You know, when we go back to the charter reform, imagine taking $400 million and handing it back to the public schools for these type of programs. How much college preparedness, whether it's on a vocational side or it's on
We could do
the
everything.
others, what can we do? What can Norristown do if $3 million came back into their budget if they didn't have to tax the taxpayers?
Yeah.
You know,
I could put in everything. I could have my nurses, counselors, teachers'
AP
aides,
programs.
AP programs. I could have everything. College preparatory programs.
without
All be there.
closing any charters.
Without closing a charter school.
It's reforming the way we do the process, and that's really what I think
Really
is-
important, really important. So this community, there's a lot of things that have come into my mind after having this discussion, but this community particularly, I'm glad that we are here at the Voc Technical School because we have had a discussion about the importance of them and, you know, what does education look like in the future? What do jobs look like in the future? Since the pandemic, everything's changed. And I think of my own daughter. She's 18 years old and she goes to college, but she also has 4 certifications under her belt since she graduated from high school. And she graduated from Renaissance Charter School. She has 4 certifications for, you know, esthetician. I keep messing that up, but that's what she does. So I'm saying that things look different. She has no interest in going to work in a brick and mortar job every day at the same place. She has really no interest in that. She's very entrepreneurial. She's going to school to learn how to run her business. But I don't think she'll ever go to a job every day the way that I've done for the past 20 years of my life, where we get up, we go to work every day, same brick and mortar building, we have a pension, we have a 401k, we have all these things. So I've listened to her and her friends talk about, she's created her own 401k type savings program already. Her thought process is totally different than mine was at 18 years old. And I think that has also encouraged me to have this discussion about the future of education and understanding what differences do we need as a school district to put in place to support the new thinking of young people. And I think that they aspire differently. They think differently with regards to planning for the future. And I thought of her making plans for, you know, her 401k because you tell people, you know, in this community, there were 5 places that people were employed. They either worked at the post office, Luke and Steel, they worked at Stroman Bread, they worked at the state hospital, or I said the post office already? At the post office.
Oh, the school district.
And the school district, they worked in the school district. So those were the solid jobs that people would become employed at. They would get a pension, be a part of a union, and work there their entire life. I don't think that the population of children, of students that are graduating, are thinking in terms of the jobs. Those jobs don't even exist anymore.
No.
So we have to make sure that this conversation is important. It's very important that it not only happens today, but it continues to happen with experts like yourself, to make sure that legislators, when they go to Harrisburg, and I'm hoping that I get to go to Harrisburg, that we are filled with the information to make sure legislation is created to support the future and actually the current needs of what students are experiencing. And I feel like thinking about this technical school and feeling like, you know, exposing children to the trades. In this building alone, you can gain enough certifications to go and make $80,000 a year. But maybe someone in Norristown isn't thinking about coming to this technical school because before you get here, you need $300 to purchase a kit with your work boots or your work, the uniform that you wear, and the tools. The tools that you need to go into automotive, to go into the mechanics division, to go into all of these trades, cosmetology. There are things that you need before you go into that. So if I get to go to Harrisburg, what I'm hoping to do is create legislation around making sure there's no barrier between getting that kit for a student and making sure that they have the information, that you don't have to think of that barrier. So if this school gets free lunch, because it's in Norristown, any student that gets free lunch should have the ability to get that kit also, delivered to them to go to this school, get a trade, and go out and make a livable wage. And that's really what I'm hoping to do. One of the things that I'm hoping to do.
Well, I think that the conversation, sometimes we get lost in what our needs are in our districts, just our districts. And as a legislator, you have to look at the needs across the Commonwealth.
Sure, very true.
And when we sit with our colleagues from other areas, we have to understand what their community looks like. Because their community is completely different than ours.
Yes.
We're unique in the Southeast and Pittsburgh, Allegheny County, Pittsburgh area. Those two areas we're a lot the same. So the Collier counties and all that, but in the middle of the state, it's completely different. And I've had the opportunity to visit so many communities over the last almost 4 years, and you see that. And when we sit at the table, we need to hear our colleagues and what their issues are. Those kids in those districts have almost the same type of issues. Like, they're coming out of there and where are they going to school? What was their education like? In those parts, we need to boost up agricultural things. You know, we are the number one, that's our number one industry in Pennsylvania is agriculture. And we were talking about
that committee.
Yeah.
I have two working farms in my district.
Do you?
Yes.
So it's huge in the state. Number two, and they go back and forth, is tourism. Exactly. And we need to make sure our tourism and the money we invest in our cities are safe and our small areas are safe, so people want to come to Pennsylvania and do this. And you brought up where your daughter goes to school. There are some excellent charter schools that are out there.
Agreed.
This is not an attack on them. This is an equalization of the way we look at them. Renaissance, I know Renaissance, I've toured Renaissance. It's a beautiful building. You know, they do, but again, we have to look at the whole Commonwealth and the way the Commonwealth is handled. And our cyber programs are something that really need to even more in-depth look at. But, you know, again, we're talking about preparing kids K through 12. You're seeing the product of what comes out of K through 12. And you would know more of what you know, like what these kids need when they're there, because you're seeing, okay, they're coming in with these deficiencies because they're not prepared right when they're leaving those school districts. And why aren't they prepared right? Some of it is the money issue, the program.
And a lot of it is the money issue,
Right.
because if I'm not funded, I don't have access to the technology. And then because of the lack of technology, now you have a larger digital divide between the haves and the have-nots. If I don't have access to the money, I don't have the AP programs that make me more competitive at the college level and more attractive to admissions officials. If I don't have the money, I don't have the teachers for certain subjects that are, you know, foundational to some of these popular careers that are going to be bursting with opportunities like the construction trades and the healthcare trades and those kinds of professions. Because Pennsylvania is an eds, meds, hospitality mecca. I mean, those are huge industries that we need to, you know, keep an eye on and preparing our young people for the future, because there's going to be a huge exodus in the next few years of people retiring.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in my 50 years old. You know? So I get it, you know, I get it. People are going to be retiring in mass numbers from those huge industries. And so we have to take a forward look and say, well, what are we doing at the ground level, the granular level of our high school students to prepare them for higher ed? Because, you know, for the tertiary level of education that they vie for, whether it's a 2-year community college or trade school, or whether it's a 4-year school, you know, traditional university, we have to understand there's going to be this huge void because of the retirement, and we have to say, what are we doing now to start preparing those
Well,
kids?
in the influx of the federal money into the infrastructure,
We're
seeing our roads, bridges, tunnels, water line. If we don't have people that can do the job, that money means nothing.
And we can't say we don't have the money.
Say that again,
Right.
because that's so important. There's so much money coming into our communities.
Yes, the money.
For construction, we need plumbers, we need construction workers. We're going to need heavy machine operators. We're going to need all these trades. We have to prepare them. You know, it's just not college.
I was at a job fair, and there was a gentleman who does carpentry. He works for a carpentry union. He was saying, Mike, if you had 30 people today, 40 people today, we were at a job fair for State Rep Gina Kerr.
Yes.
He said, if you could find me 40 guys right now that were willing to go into the trades, I can train them and hire them today.
On the spot.
Well, and you know, I'm going to say something, because what you just said, and I know you didn't mean it the way it came out. Guys, so Pam Hacker works for me. Pam Hacker was a union electrician from the 80s, a woman,
Yeah.
when it wasn't popular. We need to let women know that there's a huge opportunity for them to be welcomed into the trades. And the
Absolutely.
trades, when you talk to our tradespeople, they want women to
Yeah.
come into the trades.
Yeah.
The 30, 40 years ago, it wasn't something that was popular.
Yeah.
But I always say Pam was she was a trendsetter.
Yeah.
She had, she walked with a heavy line. And when she retired from her career, she came to work for me. She was an unbelievable employee, but she was a supervisor. And to think about that, a woman in the trades, we need to say
Yeah.
to women at a younger age in high school, you're welcome to be an electrician,
Yes.
a plumber, a carpenter.
Yes.
Come,
Yes.
we want you in this.
Yes.
It's not only a man's industry
It's
anymore.
not.
It's
We can do
everybody.
anything men can do anyway. So,
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So, welcome to the trades, and that's 50% of the people who are out there.
Yeah. Everybody. Yeah.
So we want to, we don't want to take up all your time, but
That's
this
great.
is all about, your grace
That's great.
and
That's great.
your commitment.
Great conversation. Mike, do you want to add anything else?
In terms of some free resources to kind of drop on some of the parents and students, PHIA, the Pennsylvania Higher Education Assistance Agency, used to work for them.
That's
and
how
I-
we met.
Yeah, exactly.
And that was only like,
bunch of years ago. They have a program that's online called Education Planning, and it's a great resource to help families prepare their young people and even adults that might want to know the ABCs of how to plan for higher education, how to plan for careers, how to plan for trade school. It's a great resource. And then, of course, the College Board, they have an online service to help prepare people for selecting schools. And then the Department of Ed has a resource on their website for career and higher education planning. So those are all free resources to kind of help people navigate through any of the confusion they might have, especially for first generation families.
College.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I was one of those kids.
yeah, yeah.
And our parents weren't educated enough to understand all those. That was just the thing. My son came from two educated parents. My wife and I's parents weren't educated, so
You
they
had
had
to
no
figure it
idea.
out.
Right, they had to figure it out, and they didn't know how to figure it out.
Right.
And they couldn't come to the after-school program because they were working two jobs, and who had to be home, and so the availability wasn't there.
Yeah. That's great. This was great conversation, and I appreciate both Representative Ciresi and Michael Robinson for being here today. You can read more about my platform on my website, but I am committed to bring more teachers back to the district. I'm also committed to bringing more African American and teachers of color back to the district. I'm encouraged by this conversation, encouraged by the information that I've received, what I've learned. I can't say that I was the first generation. I was very fortunate to have a grandmother who worked in this school district for 46 years. She was a teacher. She went to Cheney University. And so I was able to live with both great grandparents. So I'm very fortunate to say that. I try to say that at every opportunity I get because I feel like living with my ancestors gave me something very different that I'm able to use in many ways, just their wisdom and their insight. And one of the things that I've learned from them is to be a good listener. And that's what I've done today. Hope that you've enjoyed this conversation. And you can find out more at www.voterochelleforpa.com. Thank you.